Right, hello and welcome to episode 49 of the ReptiChat podcast, the best reptile podcast in the world, as voted for by myself. I hope you are all well today. Welcome if you guys are in the chat. I see a few of you there already. First thing to note, if you're on Patreon, you already know, I'm working on Podcast Studio 3.0. At the moment, we're in Studio 2.5, and the camera's blurring me out and the sound's a bit echoey. So you just have to bear with. But when I come back after my short break, hopefully we'll have a brand new top tier studio. Anyway, as I'm sure you all are aware, there seems to be a link between reptile keepers and people that have tattoos. I don't know where this love for ink comes from, but the majority of reptile keepers seem to have tattoos. And that's why Bobby from Rango's Tats has decided to support the podcast for the next few months. Bobby is based in Bishop Stortford, and there should be some tattoos on screen now, in a studio called Obsidian Ink. Now, guys, if you want to go and get some reptile-related ink or anything else, go and check Bobby out. Drop him a message on Instagram. There's a link in the description below. Start your message with the word ReptiChat so he knows that I sent you. Next up is Patreon. Let me just push the buttons. I've moved everything around and my computer's all over the wrong place today. So, where are we? Patreon. Patreon, you guys are on screen now. Thank you very much for your continued support. If you would like to join the Patreon, it starts at as little as £1 a month, and there is a link in the show notes below. Why should you join the Patreon? Well, there's a Discord where you can chat to me more than you can chat to me anyway. Not that it doesn't matter. There's early access to every single vlog, and if I've done a pre-recorded podcast, you also get early access to that. Not only that, there are stickers as well, and who doesn't love a sticker? So yeah, like I said, there is a link in the show notes below. And finally, as I'm sure you're aware by now, I am a Tough Mudder ambassador. If you want to have a go and want to save yourself some money at the same time, use code TMBA24-BENN to save yourself at least 20%. There are a few events left this year. So yeah, don't miss out. If you want to go and have a go at that, go and use that code. Save yourself some pennies. So today's guest is a published author, has been a zoo owner, established 2 very successful animal education companies, was the director of the famous Madras Crocodile Bank Trust in Chennai, India, and has done many other things, but is now the head of education at Crocodiles of the World. So please, can we get a big welcome for Colin Stevenson. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you very, very much for coming on today. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's good to see the weather clearing up.
Yeah, it is nice, but I've just, like I said, I've built a new studio, and it's so hot in here, it's ridiculous. So I've got a couple of fans, so if people can hear them, I apologise, but it's like walking into the Nile Crocodile house.
Fair enough. So Studio 3.0 is going to be air conditioned, is it, with a view?
It's going to have some fans at least, let's say that. But yeah, at the moment I've got awful lighting, and I don't know what's going on with it. But as long as the sound's all right, that is what matters. Going to say a quick hello to people in the chat. Who have we got? We got Dan. Hello. Fiona is there as well with a little crocodile emoji. And Paul is there saying Croc Gang. I don't know if he's referring to the shoe or the animal, but thank you guys for joining in. So, Colin, there's lots to get through. As we heard from the introduction, you're a man who has done many, many things. I'd like to start the podcast, if you don't mind, with a section I like to call the Get to Know section. And it's basically a few this or that questions, like quick fire, just so we can sort of get to know the person on the camera. So if you're happy, we'll get to them.
Go for it.
Fantastic. So cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Fantastic. That's what I like to hear. Snakes or lizards?
Gee, that's actually a tough one. Might have to go lizards only because of the Komodo.
Nice. Yeah, we like that. Frogs or salamanders?
Frogs.
Centipedes or millipedes?
I'm going to go millipedes because centipedes can be assholes.
Yeah, centipedes can be the creeps. Spiders or scorpions?
Spiders.
Crocodiles or alligators?
Even.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's all right. Final few: grassland or woodlands?
Grasslands or woodlands, did you say?
Yep.
Woodlands.
Beach or mountains?
Beach, 100%.
Yep. Hot climate or cold climate?
Hot.
Good. And the final question, probably the most important question of the entire podcast: what is your favourite biscuit?
Your favourite biscuit? Tim Tam.
Right, and that's an Aussie one. We don't get those over here, I don't think.
Absolutely, it's an Aussie one.
Yeah,
it's a bit like a penguin, but nicer.
Okay, that's yeah. I don't really like penguins, so they sound great.
No,
They're nice.
I don't really like Tim Tams that much either. I'm not a biscuit.
Just representing the country.
They've got chocolate on them, so you know.
Yeah. Fantastic. Right, let's get into it. So, Colin, from that intro, like I said, it's very clear that you have your finger in many reptile-related pies over the year. So, could you give me and the listeners a history lesson into your life? Where did the passion start, and what stepping stones have you taken to get you from where the passion ignited to where you are today?
Right, yeah. Well, the crocodile thing has been lifelong. So, if you have a look at my baby book, it says from age 2. Favorite things, crocodiles. No one knows why. The parents denied all responsibility. It wasn't their fault, apparently. I don't know. I don't know where it came from, but that's all I can remember as being somewhat obsessed with crocodiles, walking around with, toy crocodiles on my shoulder. About age 7, I think it was, my mother made me this is before really all this, DC and whatever the other thing is, Marvel and everything were really that big. Back when comics were for, little kiddies, let's be honest. She made me a crocodile, a sort of croc man kind of outfit. So I had a cape with a crocodile on it and a vest with a crocodile on it. Looked totally ridiculous, but I didn't care. It had a croc. So the crocodile thing's always been there, and my brother and I, growing up, so I grew up in Sydney, just to set the scene there, and just behind the school there was a nice area, like a few acres of bushland. So my brother and I were regularly over in that bushland catching reptiles, mainly bearded dragons, blue tongues, the odd snake. Couldn't tell you what it was, because whenever we got home with a snake, we got ordered to take it straight back and release it. So we were always catching mainly lizards, I suppose, and mainly bearded dragons and blue tongues. So what we had is, I think my elder brother had tried the old keeping cockatiels and peach-faced birds and all that. That didn't work. So we had some empty bird aviaries. So what we used to do is we used to go over, catch the lizards, put them in a box, take them home, and then we'd have them in these bird aviaries for a couple of weeks, usually, no more than really 2-3 weeks, and then we'd catch them up again and release them. So we'd be looking after them for a couple of weeks, but they never had to stay in these in the aviaries, and then we'd release them. I don't know, it would have been good to have done a sort of mark recapture kind of thing, really, to see how many catch the same poor bastard and drag him back home. So even my brother, or at least one of them, was somewhat obsessed with reptiles. And luckily, also growing up in Sydney, just north of Sydney, if you're ever going to go to Australia, of course, most flights land in Sydney. And a lot of reptile guys want to head up north, whatever, and see the crocs, or hunt for monitor lizards or whatever. But if you're in Sydney, make the trip up about hour north of Sydney to the Australian Reptile Park. It's a fantastic place, still is, and it was there when I was a kid. So we used to get every holiday pretty much we'd be going at least past it, and we'd always, Mum, Dad, can we go to the reptile park? But to be honest, the whole family enjoyed it. So we used to love going there, and it may well have been, the reptile park that was partly responsible for me being somewhat obsessed with crocs. I don't know. don't know. So yeah, my childhood was really quite a lot of reptiles. Wasn't allowed to have a pet crocodile.
That's a bit unfair, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit harsh. I did try asking for a dwarf caiman, but back then parents didn't know what a dwarf caiman was, so I dipped out on that one. So my first pet was actually a long-necked turtle, eastern long-neck, Longicollis, whatever it's called these days.
Yeah.
Changes every year, doesn't it? These names. So that was my first pet. Was a reptile, not a. I prefer dogs, but I've never had a dog really myself. I've had some, but with the family. But reptiles.
I've got 3 dogs.
You guys know what it's like. I don't know. Sometimes you can't quite put it into words, can you?
No, I know exactly what you mean. And then going on from childhood, you have done a lot of things. So I'll try and do my best to cover some of it. Obviously, we won't go through everything because we'll be here for a very long time. But the first thing I'd like to touch on, we'll stay with Australia. Let's talk about Hunter Valley Zoo. New South Wales, Australia. So my research says that you owned and developed the zoo. It's still thriving today. How do you happen to own a zoo? Give us all the zoo information.
Being a bloody idiot has plays a bit of a part in it. But we'd actually already set up the reptile, like we called it Crocodile Encounters, which seemed like a good idea at the time. But in the later years of Crocodile Encounters, someone did ring up and thought it was an escort service. Never thought of that when we came up with the name. But anyway, so we had Crocodile Encounters. We were going around to schools, sadly doing birthday parties as well. It was a big earner. And this zoo became available, and it was all Australian animals, a couple of exotics. So there were some primates and ostriches, but and some other parrots and stuff like that were exotic. But a lot of kangaroos, a lot of wallabies. It was a rundown, but it was a cool little place. And to be honest, all the animals looked pretty good. The size of the enclosures was pretty good, and the clincher was the price was right, to be honest. And the authorities really did want to see that zoo move on. The previous owner, to be honest, he was getting on a bit, and he'd had his fun with it. So it was time he wasn't going to develop it anymore. So they encouraged us to get involved. So we took that on, managed to something like triple or quadruple the number of visitors, in the first couple of years.
Wow.
Also, probably, the expenses went up about 10 times because there was a lot of work to do. So, but it was great. It was quite, it's in an area, if you don't know New South Wales, it's a couple of hours north of Sydney, and it's in a wine country. And there's a hell of a lot of visitors. So to be honest, the location was ideal. The price was good. And it was a long-term plan, really.
Right.
But, unfortunately, there were some issues over here with my wife's English, with her family. So we had very little choice but to move back over here. So we had to sell it, unfortunately. But, in that time, it was great. Just developing nicely, a great experience, made some big, stupid mistakes, but good. It's how you learn. And the experience, had some great keepers working for us. And just the fact that it's now still running, it's, developed a lot since we bought it. The people that bought it off us had a bit of money, and they've since sold it on to sort of a consortium that owns 3 zoos, I think. So, there's been a lot of investment in it, which is great, so happy to have played a decent role in the history of that, of that zoo. So great experience. Could have been better, but really.
Yeah.
Really
had you had any, apart from obviously the crocodile encounters, had you had any experience on the zoo side of things before diving in? at the deep end, so to speak, with the zoo?
Not really. I mean, I've been by that stage been involved with mainly crocodile conservation, which obviously you're interacting with a lot of zoos and stuff like that, doing getting to know people, getting to know species, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I hadn't actually worked at a zoo up until that stage, but kind of had, if you know what I mean. I'd spent a lot of time sort of in a professional capacity around zoos, so I kind of knew how it. I knew the basics, but there was
knew enough to get by.
Still a nice learning curve.
Yeah, it's like a learning direct straight line up.
Yeah. Or learning curve sometimes like that. You crash and burn, but anyway.
Yeah, you have to make a few mistakes to learn, though, don't you?
Absolutely, and I've learned a lot.
Yeah. So after the zoo, obviously you said you had to come over here. When you got back to the UK, I don't know the timeline exactly, but you were the first person to establish a company that was allowed to take crocodilians into schools for education. So obviously you'd already been doing that over in Australia.
Yeah.
And then you came over here. So
it was actually really easy. As a lot of your viewers probably are aware, to keep a croc over here, you have to have a DWA.
Yeah.
And under that DWA, it's quite specific. That animal is licensed for a particular location and in a particular enclosure, and you've got to have double doors and locks, and the police and the fire brigade need to know about it and all that sort of rubbish. So it's quite specific. That animal stays put. It does not go anywhere. So before I'd already in the 90s, I'd lived over here, had some crocs, some caimans. So when I got back to the UK, I thought, well, that's what I'm going to be doing. So I'll tell the council that's what I'm doing right from the word go. So I just sort of said to them, I'm going to apply for a DWA. However, this is what I'm going to do. And they said, oh, you can't do that under a DWA. And I said, I know you can't at the moment. That's why I'm telling you that's what I'm planning on doing. And they said, well, leave it with us. So I just had a look at the regulations that I had to adhere to in Australia, and basically sent a copy of the rules and regs, all the things that I had to strictly adhere to. I removed some of the ones that I didn't like. I'm not stupid. And then sent it to the local council, and got it asked along to a council meeting where they drilled me with a few questions, and then following the vet visit and everything, they said, yeah, fine, there's your DWA. You are able to, all you have to do is just let us know, basically every month, give us a schedule for when you're going around. But it was written into my DWA that I was permitted to take crocs around. And shortly after that, I got a phone call from someone in the UK. I did remember his name for a few years, but I've forgotten now. Not very happy because he had a business and had one for many years, taking reptiles around to schools and things, but was never allowed to take a DWA animal. So he was quite irate with me for being over. So he was having a go at me. It's the council that gave me the license. So I just sort of said, it's a council. I applied and I told him what I wanted to do. How about you try and do that yourself? I have no idea whether he did or not. There's, in the intervening years, there's been a few companies that have done similar sorts of things. But I'm pleased to say I was the first that was legally allowed to.
That's cool. I know a few companies local. I know of 2 companies locally, but they don't have DWA animals. They just have your standard reptiles. So that's incredible.
The trouble with it is one of the things that I left in, because I completely agree with it, was in Australia you have to have sufficient number of crocodiles so that you can rotate them, give each one a nice break. So absolutely sensible regulation, that one. So that one stayed in. I was more than happy to comply with that one. It just meant that I had to have a few crocs and alligators. I ended up with, I think I had 9 species at one stage.
Wow. Do you know how many individual animals you had roughly at
for crocs? Gee, 9 species. I didn't have pairs of all of them. Must have had about 16, 17 crocodiles, I suppose, and alligators, caimans. Some quite unusual. So Sean, the guy that owns Crocodiles of the World at the time, he had some Cuban crocs. They're still at Crocodiles of the World. I had a Cuban crocodile, and that was when Paynton Zoo were opening their croc swamp with, guess what, we've got Cuban crocs, the only ones in the UK. Me and Sean were going, no, they're not. We've had them for a couple of years. So, there were some really interesting species. It was, it was good times, really.
Yeah,
a good time to do it. Was very successful. It was great. But, and the trickiest thing for me was really, okay, the money is fine, it paid quite well, but the main thing was really the welfare of the animals. I mean, you know what it's like.
Got to be a lot of space.
Stressful for me to go and deal with bloody kids, let alone these poor old animals. So trying to maintain that was the trickiest thing, really. That was paramount, really.
No, definitely. You must have had a lot of space available as well to have 16, because like crocs aren't small animals. Even the small ones aren't small.
No. I didn't. The only adults I had was some of the small. So I had an adult pair of dwarf crocodiles from Chester Zoo. That was a weird one, but anyway, I didn't take them anywhere. They just stayed there. But every now and then there'd be, some celebrations. Bonfire night and everything. That, any deep vibrations can often trigger bellowing in crocodilians. So that was kind of funny. To people walking past, our house would hear what they thought was a lion growling. So people used to start crossing the road when they walked past my house. They didn't quite know. They just knew there was this weird Aussie living there, and they knew he had some weird animals, but they didn't know quite what.
That always got the didgeridoo out again.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's incredible. I remember, and we'll touch on it properly later, but I remember when Sean was getting started and he had the program on Channel 4, Crocman. I remember seeing like the crocs in the bottom of his garden, and like he didn't have that many. I can't remember how many he had at the time, but even so, there's a lot of crocs, and it take up a mad amount of space.
I think at that time, between him and me, I think we had probably about 60% of the crocs under DWA within the UK.
That's cool.
Yeah. Not the only crocs, of course. There's probably still a few that are out of the DWA, but between the two of us, we had quite a few. There's still one of the ones that I had that's at Crocs of the World.
Yep.
Another few that have sort of gone back to a croc zoo in Denmark. So still have some contact with some of the crocs that I had.
That's cool. It's nice to still have that. I suppose, do you get attached to a crocodile the same way you would other animals? So I'm attached to the monitor lizards and stuff that I keep. So
yeah. Absolutely. It's weird. You can't cuddle them, and the pictures that you see on the internet, people hugging their crocs. I don't like those, because quite often you got those people, they're wearing a jacket or something. So straight away, that's a bit of a ding 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 to me. If you're wearing a jacket, you're not that hot, so therefore the croc's probably a little bit chilly, and also they don't like to be hugged. I'm afraid crocodiles don't like to be hugged. Just let it be a crocodile, please. Let's just let the poor thing be a crocodile or an alligator. Don't sit there and pretend it's a little puppy dog. But despite not being able to hug them and all that sort of stuff, you get very attached to them. I mean, just like a lot of your viewers, I've lost some crocodiles over the years. Sometimes my fault, and sometimes bad luck. But especially when it is your fault, and it's a husbandry thing, it's knocks you. It really does knock you, because to think you're responsible for it, for the death of a crocodilian, that's a tough one for me to take. So
definitely. Paul's just put a comment on there saying, "Man, crocodiles are the smartest reptiles on the planet. For sure, you'd be bonded to them."
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. So it's nice to be able to be like it's I can't get my words out. Nice to be able to sort of keep in touch, so to speak, with some of the animals that you used to keep.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah. Just walking past, one of the dwarf caimans. They always smile at her. She's lovely.
Yeah,
Lovely
she smiles straight back at you, showing
She
those
does.
teeth off.
Yeah.
And then you said,
I'm sure she is.
yeah, and then you said you've got a few over at the Danish crocodile.
Yeah, Danish Crocodile Zoo. Yeah,
and that's run by is that run by Rene as well?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So he's been a mate of mine since sort of mid-90s kind of thing. So known him for a long time. It's another good guy.
Yeah, definitely
doing some great stuff. Great
somewhere
collection.
that I would absolutely love to visit. Like I've seen it a lot, and it looks
Yeah, he's
incredible.
developed. It's been a few years since I've I had promised to get there in over the summer. It's just not looking too likely at the moment, but. In the next 6 months or something, I'll get over there. But it's been a few years, and he's developed a lot since then. He seems to be every 6 to 12 months developing something more. It's great. Yeah, it's good.
No, that's brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And then back to your history lesson of life, I suppose. After where do we get to? After you did the educational things, taking the crocodiles in school, in 2011, you headed to Chennai, India.
Chennai, that's the one, yeah.
Where you were the director of the Madras Crocodile Bank.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to lie, I didn't know what this was. I had to Google it. So for those that are listening that don't know what it is, what is a crocodile bank and what did the work entail? How did that happen?
Right, yeah. Madras Croc Bank is basically a crocodile zoo in Chennai or Madras. It used to be called Madras, when the India decided to revert to the original names, it went back to Chennai. So it's on the eastern coast down towards the southeastern coast of India. And the person that set it up, a lot of you viewers will probably know, that was Rom Whittaker, a bit of a legend, the old Rom. And I'd known him for a few years. So about 2 or 3 years prior, I was involved, well, for longer than that. So, going back to early 2000s, I was part of the Crocodile Specialist Group and part of the Tomistoma Task Force. So we were, a group of us within the CSG that were really tasked with developing some interest within range for the Tomistoma. And then similarly for gharials within India and Nepal, there was a similar sort of project which started off as a CSG thing, so I was involved, and then Rom took it over and then really drove that forward from Croc Bank. The reason it's called the Crocodile Bank is when he set it up in the 70s, he'd already set up the Madras Snake Park, but when he set up the Croc Bank, the idea really was for it to become a repository, so people from other countries, crocodile guys and from zoos around the world would send, basically, if they could, a pair of all of the different crocodilian species to Madras, and then Rom would keep them there and hopefully breed, and that would become a bank or a reserve.
Almost like a Noah's Ark type.
Yeah, pretty much a bit of a Noah's Ark for crocodilians, especially the endangered ones. So when I was there, we had 20 species, 21 species. I can't quite remember. That's terrible. And, going strong sort of thing. Just going back, I'd known Rom through this gharial project within the Crocodile Specialist Group, and the job came up basically, and he mentioned it to me, went back home and said to my wife, "Oh, Rom's mentioned there's a job going in India," and we both just looked at ourselves and just started laughing and went, "India, yeah, right." So I just politely declined, and was speaking to another guy. Actually, I'd done a talk somewhere, and so I'm a family member of a guy called Patrick Ost was at the show. So this guy Patrick, I knew he was another Crocodile Specialist Group sort of member contacted me and just said, you wouldn't know of any jobs going, were you? He'd just finished some work, I think in Africa at the time. He'd just done his PhD maybe. So he's just, just back in the UK, just looking for something to do. And I said, well, actually, not in the UK, but in India. So he went over there and became the director of Madras Croc Bank for a couple of years. He had young kids. It's tricky to work there with a family, I've got to be honest. So after 2 years, that was pretty much enough for him. The job came up again. Rom contacted me, and I thought, actually this time, maybe. So we went for it, and luckily I got the role, and it was awesome. I mean, you've got a just under 10-acre zoo on the beach in southern India, so lovely and warm all year round. Bordering on a bit too hot, I've got to admit, at some parts of the year. Backing onto the beach though, so after work you can literally just walk through the back fence across the beach and go for a swim. Hard to take. At night time, so everyone, all of the main staff lived on site too, so it did become quite a family. I was there for a few months before my family joined me. We lived in a house called Mugger Mansion. There's a lot of mugger crocodiles there at the time. I think it was about 2,500 muggers. Wow. And where my family were staying, out the front door, take about three large steps, and there was a little wall. And beyond that wall, on the other side of the wall, was a breeding pen of mugger crocodiles. So I was in heaven, to be honest.
Yeah, that's incredible.
But it's not just the instead of Madras Crocodile Bank Trust, we just refer to it as MCBT. But so MCBT had the zoo, but it also had some field stations. So one of them was in the Bombay rainforest. One of them was on the Andaman Islands. Again, pretty hard to go on to visit there. And there was another one up near, just outside of Agra, where the gharial work was going on. So as the director, I had to keep my eye on the different field stations as well, which was great. The Bombay rainforest one, that at the time was the only tracking project for any animal, I think, where the guys went out every single day. They did not miss a single day of tracking these king cobras. So they had a really, really good tracking program, as well as, being the place in the region that people would call if they had a snake in their house, or especially a king cobra. They had that down pat, calming everyone down and educating people about them. Most of the time they'd just say, yep, we know the snake's in there. Don't worry about it. How's things? What are you up to? What do you like doing? What's your job? They'd just be talking to these people and, give it about half an hour, and that snake usually would work its way out, and they'd go, oh, there it goes now. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Just leave the damn things alone. And you know what? They don't want to be in there. They want to.
Yeah, they're just looking for an easy meal, aren't they?
So, they did some phenomenal stuff with the local people up there. Same with the gharials. Geez, the group that we had, they were awesome. They would again go to villages and just try to help them. Yeah. Don't mention that they're anything to do with crocodiles. Just what problems do you guys face here? Whether it's socioeconomic or can't get access to any of the government funding or government schemes, things like that. Just put villages in touch with these other NGOs and with these government schemes, just to help them out. And then once they realise that you're genuine, just right, do you have a problem with the crocodiles? The gharials, this is how you can live with them. It's it was very rewarding, and it really was the ultimate combo of a zoo. So we could develop the zoo. So we would working with the zoo authorities for developing that, and training the staff for husbandry. Improving enclosures, a lot of that stuff. There's some awesome enclosures that they had there, as well as the research, and you're absolutely doing really, really important conservation work. It was pretty much the perfect job, but it was in India, and after about 3 years, I think India had enough of me and I had enough of it, sort of thing. We parted on good terms. But look, any of you guys, you want to go to India, you think, people think, oh, I want to see wildlife, I'll go to Africa. You actually think about India. The people are super friendly, very easy to get around. The trains are something to experience, believe me. But anyway, but you can still get places. Just hold on, don't go to the toilet while you're on one. Believe me, it takes you a while to get over that one. Forget what I was saying now. Animals, that's right. But you think they've got elephants, they've got rhinos, they've got tigers, they've got lions as well up in Gujarat, and they've got if depending on where you go, you can either see saltwater crocs, muggers, and gharials. If you go to the Chambal River, there's a fantastic sort of eco lodge very near to the Chambal River. You can stay there. There's animals you're sitting there having a beer, and these animals just walk through the compound. It's just unbelievable. Wow. Not the gharials, but other mammals. Birds apparently are pretty good. I tend not to look up too much, but anyway.
Pretty busy looking at frogs.
And then they'll take you down to the river, and you're on the Chambal River. You 100% you will see muggers and you will see gharials. Wow. 100% guarantee. Awesome place. I do recommend it. If there's anyone watching this that's young and wants to get into the industry, wants to look at something that's a little bit exciting, but you want to do something as a volunteer, Croc Bank takes volunteers. Don't know how much it is these days. It used to be £5 a day when I was there. It's probably gone up a bit, so just check that out on their website. But we'd get volunteers coming over for a few months. They'd learn a hell of a lot because we would actually get them in. There was a nursery area with about 6 or 7 different croc species. They got Komodo dragons and anacondas and everything they're breeding there now. The Indian rock pythons, all that sort of stuff. That if you like tortoises, Travancore, or Chelania in general, some of the more endangered Indian turtle species. A lot of animals there that they're breeding, and these volunteers got to do a bit of everything. Really, really quite good. It's still safe, but and then because you're staying on site. At night time, the staff would usually take these volunteers around just for night walks. So you'd be seeing vine snakes and all sorts of geckos, all sorts of things. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. I'd love that.
And they have the big 4 as far as the venomous snakes just in the area too. So you'd be able to go for walks just over the road, in the fields over the road. And there's a sort of I guess they're a caste over there, but the Arulas, and they are expert snake trackers. So you'd go out with the Arulas and they would show you what they're looking for. So they'd be just looking around, go, yeah, there's a snake over there, and you go, well, you just know where he lives, don't you? And they said, no, if you have a look, the way the bird is calling and the way it's looking and everything like that. And if you have a look here, you can just see these little scale marks here, and you think, hey, yeah, okay, fair cop. And sometimes they would annihilate the poor hole that the poor snake was trying to hide away from. But they drag it out, and you'd see these cobras and saw scales and Russell's vipers. It's quite incredible. It's an amazing place.
Yeah, definitely. I know, like you said, most people think of Africa when they think a wildlife sort of expedition, but I think India sounds incredible.
Yeah, and if you happen to be there when what usually happened if we had any European volunteers, especially, we'd hear a noise that used to indicate that Rom was visiting, and they'd go, "Oh, what's that noise?" The dogs just kicked off. Rom's coming. They go, "Rom, and they'd just disappear. They'd run up to the gift shop, buy a copy of Rom's Snakes in India book, run back down, and as soon as he got here with trembling, "Can you sign this book for us?" Rom is just one of those guys. What he has done for reptiles and amphibians in India is just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It's not just crocodiles, with the snakes, especially lizards. What he's done is just incredible. A lot of where India is and the researchers and everything like that with reptiles largely is due to Rom Whittaker, to be honest. And he's one of those guys, when they walk into a room and there's just something about some people, and Rom's like that. It's just incredible, really. He's a great, phenomenal guy.
Yeah.
So to be working, for him was, a bit of an honor, really.
Yeah, definitely. You did briefly mention there as well, people were running into the gift shop and grabbing his books, which I'm going to use as a segue to go on to your books, because I did say you were a published author. So tell us, I believe you got 3. I might be wrong if I'm not, but yeah, look at that, Crocodiles of the World. Tell us about the book. Where can people find it? When did you write it? All that sort of good stuff.
I've written. I mean, I've written enough papers and stuff like that, and booklets and bits and pieces over the years. But there's a publisher in Australia. They do a lot of sort of wildlife publishing in Oz, and they contacted me and just said, we've got a few books that they've had out for years, decades, in fact, on some of the Australian crocodiles. They're awesome books as well, but they want to do one on the crocodiles of the world. And I said, "Yep, okay, I'm quite happy to do that."
Yeah.
So it was actually written very, very quickly, probably within a 6-month period, which really wasn't long enough, I've got to be honest. But it's come out. It's come out well. It's the cover that they've come up with. I really like that. The printing is great. Oh, you can't see it on there, so I was going to flick through, but yeah, there's loads of pictures, and when I wrote it, so it's got every species of crocodiles and alligators, caimans and garrows mentioned in the books. There's a couple of, at least 4 pages on each species. Some of them get a little bit more because there's a bit more to say, and came out in 2019, and when I was writing it, I just had actually a few of the guys at work in mind that already know a bit about crocs, but some of the concepts, I tried to explain it as simple as possible, but have a bit of meat to it, a bit of detail. So it's not a kid's book. So you should be able to read that, especially, anyone viewing this would be able to understand any of the information pretty easily, really. But it's just what I tried to do was just, as I say, just explain it in layman's terms. Some of the things that were going around, people would hear, you'd hear it repeated, but it'd never be quite repeated. People would be telling things not quite in the right context, and you could tell you don't really quite understand what that actually means. So I tried to address that, really. So that was the aim. It's done well, good reviews, which is great. Haven't earned very much at all from it. The bugger with it is, because it's an Aussie publisher, by the time they send their books over to the UK or to Europe in general, Amazon and the big distributors require such a reduction in price, like a discount. It barely covers, their cost with the shipping and everything. So they don't actually like sending books over here. I think they had said that from July or August or something, they're going to get a new distributor, which should make it more easily available. But it's one of those weird situations. They undercharged with the hardback book. They were charging $16.99, and when I went over to one of my visits back home, I popped into the publisher and they just said, "How much is the book in the UK?" I said $16.99, and the lady in charge of the company fell off a chair and just said, you've got to be kidding. We lose money on that.
Oh.
So the paperback came out, and it was actually more expensive than the hardback. So didn't really help sales, but you're not really going to be writing a crocodile book to become
definitely not.
bestseller.
If people want to buy it, where can they find it? Is it on Amazon?
You can find it on good old Amazon, or was it Natural History Book Service? I think hopefully a few of you guys have probably used that. The company itself is New Holland Publishers, and they have a website. You can get it through them. But, when it first came out, you can probably go to some of the bigger, like Foyles and some of the bigger Blackwells and things like that. But I haven't seen it in there for a year or two, so you're not likely to run across it in the local bookstore.
Definitely, I need to get a copy. My hands on a copy. I think I was looking through it from what I could see online earlier. It does look absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I'm happy with the way it's come out. I just wish I'd been able to spend a bit longer on it. Some of it, I can be a little bit of a perfectionist with the way I write things. So there's a few bits that just sit there and go, oh, I didn't explain that very well. But
it just opens you up for a second one.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't mind having the chance to revisit and update it. But luckily since it came out, there's been another few species revisions. But luckily, I anticipated some of those. I couldn't pick the name that they were going to give it, but anticipated those. So it's still in date as far as that goes.
Fantastic. Now we are going to move on to our final topic of the day. So that is obviously crocodiles of the world. So we're going to dip in and out. And I've got a few questions on screen that they don't really follow any sort of. They don't make sense in order, but they all make sense as questions themselves.
Right. No worries.
So I visited Crocodiles of the World more times than I can count on my fingers. I'm a massive fan. Having watched Sean from the start of the project on Crocman on the telly, it holds a firm place in my heart. But what is it like on the other side? What's it like being a member of the team at Crocodiles of the World?
Well, for a few of us that are absolutely obsessed with crocs, it's the only place in the UK that you can actually think of working. So in that regard, it's great. I mean, I knew Sean before the TV show, so I've known him for a long time as well. The team is great. It's a good bunch of people. I'm very pleased to say that they are all the keeping team are, if not obsessed, they're all very, very, very serious about the welfare and everything like that. So everyone, I've mentioned that a couple of times because it is one of my little bugbears. If you're going to have a zoo, our feeling is, well, none of the animals put up their little paw and said, "Pick me, put me in a cage." So you therefore you have a duty of care for these animals, and all of the animal teams share that, which is great. It's nice that it's expanded. Sean's been pretty good with that side of things too, hasn't he? So what he tries to do is every 6 months have something new. Anyone that hasn't been there really in the last 6 months, certainly since Easter, you'll notice there's a new entrance to the place now. And you walk through, you pay your dough, and then you walk through what we refer to, everyone calls it something different. I think it's the prehistoric garden or something like that. It's the official name. I wasn't listening that day. It's just a little pathway before you get back into the zoo itself. And what we've done is we've just got a few fossil crocs. They're fake ones. We've replicated them, but they are life-size. So what we've done is we've got a Sarcosuchus, because a lot of the kids ask us about, Sarcosuchus was the biggest crocodile. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, you watch National Geographic. Good on you, mate. So we've got one of those. We've got a Protosuchus, which is the first fossil that can be assigned to the crocodile lineage. Little fella, so the idea is to give people an idea of what crocodiles aren't all big, and historically they've actually been in a few funny shapes and sizes. So we've tried to pick some of the more better known ones, I suppose. And another one is a fossil that is routinely dug up from the UK and excavations in Germany as well. So, in several places in Europe, it's dug up. So the point is, we can then, tell people about, continental drift and, the PNG and all that sort of stuff. So we can cover a lot of different areas, I suppose, within that one little garden sort of thing. Just as people are walking through, they get an idea. Oh, okay, this is when this croc was around. This is when this one was. So they get a little bit of the history of the fossil history of crocodilians, and at least some idea of the shapes and sizes. Also got an indication of sizes. So we've got a silhouette of Lo Long, which is the very big saltwater crocodile that died in the Philippines about a decade ago. So it's life size, so people can stand there and, the little jaw can drop at how big that particular crocodile was. And then a typical sort of large American alligator, not exaggerated, just this is how big an American alligator can grow to these days. And then a dwarf caiman, just so people can get a bit of a sense as to, okay, those saltwater crocodiles can get big. Gee, American alligators are still pretty big. And then always aren't dwarf caimans cute. So, there's a few, it's quite good. So if you haven't been there and seen that, I think that's worth checking out. And of course, we've got a mammal section as well. And to be honest, that's really good. And it's going well too. So clouded leopards, binturongs, and the others, whatever they are, meerkats, and those little tamarin monkeys. I'm not a big primate fan, to be honest, but anyway, they're there as well if you want to look at those. I walk straight past them, but there we go. So there's a lot to see, really, and the Komodo dragon is awesome. He's an amazing beastie, and for anyone interested in reptiles, I mean, one of our biggest selling experiences was with the Galapagos tortoises. The Komodo dragon experience is very popular. You do get very close. There is some bars necessarily between you and the dragon. So they're two of our most popular ones, to be honest.
I know a fair few people I know have done the Komodo experience. My wife did the Galapagos experience for her birthday last year or the year before. Excellent. As well. And by everybody I speak to says it was absolutely amazing. Every experience they've done at Crocodiles of the World was incredible.
Super. Nice to hear.
Yeah. Now that leads us on nicely. So there's lots of questions. Like I said, they're not in any particular order. But as we mentioned, the Galaps, we'll go on to that. So I know it is a crocodile zoo, but my wife and I both love the Galapagos tortoises. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were the first zoo in the UK to captive breed them?
Yes. So that was about 2 years ago. We had 10 hatchlings. We've just had another one recently. When I say recently, within the last week or so. So I think we'll probably you could keep it under wraps because you know what it's like when they're very young. If they cark it, you don't want to have announced it. Because we've got adult wise, we've got 3 females, and they're about 24 years old, the girlies, and then Dirk, the male from London Zoo. He's around about 80. No one knows exactly because when he came into Europe in, I don't think it was the 70s or 80s, he was already, a decent size. So no one really knows exactly how old Dirk is, but yeah, it's a good group, really.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I remember the little ones are so cute as well. What I did want to ask you is what happens with the babies? Obviously, the Crocodiles of the World do a lot of conservation, but do the babies, are there any chance they go back to Galapagos? Do they go to different zoos around the world?
No, generally, though, they go to different zoos. So when we're with most of the animals, certainly with any of the reptiles, whenever and the crocodiles, especially at the start of the year, we kind of have a think about if we get eggs from this species, that species, whichever ones, do we want to hatch any out, and if so, how many? So we have to make that decision, and that's usually based on demand from other zoos, generally speaking, and that's slowed down a little bit, to be honest, because of Brexit. The zoos have found it very difficult to get through the paperwork to send in animals into Europe and to get animals from Europe. I think the trade has suffered just as bad, if not worse, than the zoos. So yeah, that's what it is based on, really. But initially, those first, the first clutches, we were just whacking a whole bunch of all of the eggs in the incubator, because we just didn't know whether they were. It's such a, well, compared to crocs, it's a long incubation time. It's about 132 days or something, those initial ones. So close to double some of the croc species. So we weren't quite sure whether they were gonna be successful. So we did over incubate, but there is a demand from other zoos. We're not ready to part with them just yet, but obviously as they grow, they will be going to other zoos. Yeah.
Fantastic. That 132 days, it's a long time to wait. I've been quite lucky with the species that I've bred previously. They're all pretty, I'd say less than 80 days.
Yeah.
Paul, who is in the comments
So
at the moment, he says
normal.
light work. He says try 200 days.
Because, some of these monitors, gee,
I
don't know what they're thinking.
I don't think I'm not patient enough for that.
No, same here. Crocs, 2 to 3 months. Yeah, there we go. Easy.
Yeah, that's 2 to 3 months is doable. Anything after that, it's like stressful. So your role at Crocodiles of the World is the head of education. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And what does that entail? What do you do at Crocodiles of the World?
So I just had developed the education program. So any of the schools, colleges, or universities that come in as groups, some reptile clubs and societies come in. So we'll organise tours for those, and lesson plans and everything for school groups, things like that. So there's a lot of that where members of BIARTSA and EARTSA. So at the moment, I'm on the committee for the Conservation Committee and the Education Committee for BIARTSA. So and on the EEP committee for the Komodo dragon for EARTSA as well. So there's a lot of committee work to be done. We've got a really, really, really good researcher working for us. She was head of crocs for a while there, head croc keeper, and then but her interest was really in the research. So until she came along, I was doing looking after any of the external researchers and dabbling with some of the research in house. But now Claire has taken on that. So work with her fairly closely on those things, and also so closely aligned the research and the conservation. So Claire and I work really quite closely together on a few conservation projects as well. One of the staff called Harry set up a bit of a field work. So we go. There's a local common nearby to where he was living, and he noticed a few common lizards. So that was a couple of years ago now. So now a few of us have been over there to document the species there. There's common lizards all over the place, slow worms, grass snakes. Quite amazing, really.
It's fantastic. I'm doing a series on YouTube at the moment where I'm trying to find all of the native UK reptiles and amphibians, and bar the sand lizard, I found all the reptiles now, which is
okay. Very good.
Exciting.
It's last year we had a community day. So we just in the school holidays and the summer holidays, we just had a day where the three of us went over and set up camp and just offered tours. We'd take people around. We have some hides put out for where we do our surveys and everything like that. So we we'd just take these groups out, and the local community just couldn't believe that there's all these reptiles just running around right where they are. It's not the sort of thing you picture in the UK. So great to open their eyes up about the native species.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
a little bit of the native species things, although that is Claire and Harry that are doing the bulk of that. So dabble a bit, and they still do a little bit of the husbandry. I'm a bit of a funny one with vitamins and minerals and supplementation. So I'm the one, I guess, that people come to if they need to tweak a diet and things like that. And also we do twice a year a croc husbandry course. So I run that now. Claire is starting to help me with that one as well. So it keeps us
really
busy.
Interesting. That's
aimed at
for like people that future keepers.
That is good, because we've been there. We know what it's like to sit there and go, okay, what do we do? Like the basics. Well, I mean, for everything from what's your daily routine, what's your weekly routine, what's the monthly routine, what sort of filter, how do I design an enclosure, what should I feed them, how often, how do you catch a croc, how do you just stand there and restrain one, how to work safely with them, really, and how to not be a hero, basically, because there's too many of those shows where people are jumping on crocs. We do have to jump on crocs, of course, every now and then we have to, but if we don't have to, we don't. We've moved quite a few crocodiles without anyone even touching the animal physically. And if we can do that, good. We'll do that, because they really hurt when they bite. So.
And is that a course that anybody can do, or is it
at the moment it's mainly aimed at other zookeepers? So but we've had a few private sort of keepers do the course.
I'm just thinking, although I don't
May, something like May, and then October. The next one.
Yeah, so like I don't plan on ever keeping any crocodilians, unfortunately. I might maybe in the future if like I win the lottery or something, but the course itself sounds interesting, even if I'm not planning on keeping anything, to be honest.
I think that if anything, that course will just expand, really. So we probably do want to expand it, and there has been talk of it being expanded and becoming an e-arts sort of course, in which case it would be several days, and we'd probably get some of the croc guys from Europe to come over and take a few of the sessions as well. So that's when it had become huge.
Yeah, definitely.
So at the moment it's just basically me and Claire, and we can control things, and it's we can be fairly casual. It's a laid back but informative thing. And what I think we're most proud of is we will point out where we're not or haven't in the past done things right, because that's where you learn. And we're not high and mighty. We don't sit there and say, oh, we're crocs of the world, we do everything better than everyone else, because it's just not true, and you're always learning. So all of us are always learning, and we just try to be honest and open so that people are learning the best practices for looking after these animals, and if they can learn something by not doing something that we've done, great, fantastic.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. Because at the end of the day, it's the animal welfare that's the most important thing. So, like I said, if you can share if you say, don't do this, we did this and it didn't work, do it this way instead.
And that's usually all. It's not like we were cutting a corner or anything. We knew it wouldn't work. No, we thought, okay, this should be all right. Actually, it's not. So, good lesson learned.
No, definitely.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely do that. So Crocodiles of the World, they do a lot for conservation, be it wherever it is in the world. What sort of projects are there at the forefront of the work at the moment that they're
doing? With the crocodiles of Philippine crocodile, the Tomistomer held off there a bit. That's in limbo at the moment, as it is for around the world. So we were hoping to rewild or send some Tomistomer back to Borneo, but we knew the logistics were tricky. But so I've only just opened up discussions on that one again. but that one's tricky. Probably won't happen. Siamese crocodiles were always worked on that. Sean's had the Siamese from when he had them in the backyard, so they're always been near and dear to him. There's a project in Bermuda, I think, where they want to set up a facility there. So that's going to be more of an education facility. I think Sean's working with them. That's his project, so that's an interesting one. Colleagues are sort of working on a project in South America with some of the Paleosuchus species. So we want to get involved in that one, support that one, because it's been a forgotten species over the years. A bit more research, but still, they're not. They're still vulnerable, I suppose, in certain areas, even though overall their numbers are. There's plenty of them. Gharial, we're always involved in some way with things like that, just mainly through my background, I guess, with working in India. So always in touch with guys and supporting where we can with that one. Setting up some projects with Binturong at the moment.
Yeah, I saw you just had baby Binturong.
Yeah, it's we got one baby, and I got to be honest, for a reptile guy, the female Binturong especially is such a character. Really quite taken with her. She's quite amusing, and she's only a year and a half old, or just over a year and a half old. So we weren't expecting any breeding really, but surprised us, and out popped a young'un. I forget what they call them, something silly, but anyway, it's a baby Binturong as far as I'm concerned.
It'd be like a Binturoo or something like that.
Yeah, something. I forget what it is now. But it's popular, and the mother is just so cash with it all. Yeah, just carries it outside and just leaves it there for hours, and it'll sit there and curl up and sleep, or just wriggle around a bit, and the visitors think it's awesome, and then she'll come back and lay down with it for a little while, and then get up and wander about.
Yeah,
it'll be right. Yeah, so that's really good. Same as clouded leopards, similar part of the world. So we're kind of looking longer term at setting something up in Borneo, in which case we could cover Binturongs, clouded leopards, and Tomistoma, probably a bit of Siamese crocodiles as well. So that'd be a really good base for us. So that's a longer term project that only just started sort of looking into that one. And then we work with the Galapagos Conservation Trust with not just the tortoises, mainly the tortoises, but we also contribute generally to help all of their projects, because they're doing some amazing stuff, and also some stuff with sharks that they're doing. We don't do it; they do that. But I really quite like sharks, so quite happy that some of the funding that we send to them is going towards that. So we're always tempted to bite off more than we can chew with conservation, because if you're not doing anything for the animals in the wild, why the hell have you got them in a zoo? There's no point, I mean, there's education I can dig all that, but ultimately there's no point. You should be trying to do your best for the representatives in the wild.
Definitely. Just a quick note for the live chat. If you guys want to get your final questions in, now is the time to do it, because we will be wrapping up very shortly. Anyway, back to Crocodiles of the World. Do you have a favourite animal at Crocodiles of the World?
Yes. Yeah, I've got a few actually, but the dwarf caiman. I've always, for some reason, dwarf caimans have always been just, I don't know what it is.
Something about them.
My even my email address outside of work is, instead of Paleosuchus, it's Coliosuchus. It's just the way things are. So really like them. At the moment, the American alligators, we've still got a couple of their babies in with them, so that's an awesome exhibit, really, because
really
for the visitors, we can get a lot of information across, and just, it's like some other another fields I know of. The idea is not necessarily to convert people into, oh yes, crocodiles are the greatest things, but if we can just put a little stone in their shoe to make them think about crocodiles and alligators and stuff. Oh, there's a little bit more to these animals than we thought. And having babies in with mum and dad, oh, aren't they going to eat them? Pretty sure we wouldn't have put them in if we thought they were going to. And then you can go into the parental care, but you can also explain the temperature dependent sex determination, all that sort of stuff. So that's, we always love it when we got some young in with the parents, because there's just so much that you can get across to people. It's great.
Yeah. It's so cool to see it as well. I can't remember when the last time I visited, must have been around April time, I think. And I think there were 6 or 7 babies in there.
We actually had 10 in there at first, and a few months ago they were just getting a bit too hard to manage for feeding and everything like that, so we had to take a bunch out. So we took 7 out, and those other 7 have already been redistributed to other zoos, so they're already gone. So we got 3 in there now.
Fantastic. And then before we get onto the chat questions, a lot of reptile keepers and animal enthusiasts in general have aspirations, especially when they're younger, to work with animals. What would your tips and advice for those people that want to get into the animal industry?
After school, have a look at one of the colleges that have an animal management sort of certificate course. Ideally, most of the colleges that run the animal management will have a collection themselves, and some of those college collections can be pretty good actually. So have a look at that. And we've got keepers, a number of keepers that have done animal management at college, and when we're interviewing for zookeeping positions, we will get people that have been to university, and some of them may have a master's. To be honest, if they got no practical experience, zookeeping is a hands-on job. If someone's purely academic, guess what? We're probably not even going to interview them, because they don't want to be a zookeeper. They probably want to go out into the field and frolic around, with bloody camera traps and stuff like that, and then write up the papers. Zookeeping is a very, very hands-on, practical job. So I've just got some virus scans just popped up on me. Technology is beautiful. So if you're going to go to uni, please make sure that you're volunteering at least at the university's animal collection, if they have one. If they don't, volunteer somewhere at a farm, at a zoo or something. You need to be able to show, one, that you're keen, because there's a lot of people that want to work with zoo animals. A hell of a lot of people that like reptiles too. So, I think a lot of people contact us and say, I love crocodiles, basically thinking we're going to go, oh my God, there's someone else, sign them up. We get something like that every week. There's a lot of people that want to work in this industry. So you need to show that you are dedicated, and that's by volunteering, basically, because we know it can be difficult. But if you really want to do it, and we have some volunteers and have had some over the years, or some of them we have offered jobs. One very recently. If a job comes up, we'll probably contact her, to be honest, because she's awesome. So it's a great way to get into the industry. It really, really is. And even if it's not within the collection that you're volunteering at, it does show the dedication, and it also shows the experience that you do have, practical, hands-on experience, and it's what you want to do. So do that. So animal management. If you want to do zoology at university, that's fine and dandy. If you are volunteering, you can also do at Sparsholt College. There's a diploma in the management of zoo and aquarium animals, or I think it's the SIMSA, so it's probably a certificate in the management of zoo and aquarium animals if you're volunteering. After 2 years, it does cost that one. I can't remember the exact amount. So it's going to cost you a little bit. And it's 2 years, part-time, online learning. And so you can do that if you've got a job. As long as you're volunteering 1 day a week at a zoo, you qualify for that. You do need to maintain it because they do check. You come out with a certificate or a diploma that British zoos recognise within the industry.
Yeah.
So that's another nice little option, but there's a price tag on that one.
Yeah, definitely. There's just a few comments that I want to bring up as well whilst they're there. So Dan says, this go back to when we were talking about the favourite animals. The lace is so cool. He's a big fan of the lace monitor.
Absolutely.
There's a lot
of we got the bells phase at the moment. Yep. So yeah, again, growing up in New South Wales, you're kind of used to laces.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and just to annoy everyone, when I was when I was living in Australia, when we had the zoo, lace monitors were $50. That's the equivalent of about £25.
The chat is going to be shouting and screaming now. That's mad. And then this one is a double-barreled comment because it obviously doesn't fit in one thing from Paul. So he says, for anyone who wants to chase a passion with animals but worried on the wage, animal pay, or the risk of losing the love, what's the advice for someone that's done it? Especially if you have ties to kids, pets, bills, and a non-supportive partner. And then he's put in brackets, none of this is me. He's living his dream, but some people struggle to take the jump.
Yeah, for some people, they really do have to just have these animals at home if they're allowed to. That is, it's no secret that the pay in the animal world is rubbish. So it is something that you just really do have to have the passion. And a lot of people that I know in the industry, that their partners actually have pretty good jobs. So it's a luck of the draw there, but it's certainly not. Having a good partner and a good family, I've got to be honest, is going to be more important than working in a zoo. So count your blessings where you have them, please. But if you are passionate about reptiles and working with them, just remember, a lot of people that come and volunteer or do work experience with us, within 2 days you can say you don't want to work with animals. You think you did, you thought you did, but once you actually see what's involved, and we're not. I mean, if you just use the Komodo dragon, for example, a lot of people love the Komodo dragon. He is awesome, but how often do the keepers actually get to, it's a morning check, run in, like shift him, get in there, check the temperatures, pick up any poo, maybe put a scent trail if it's that particular day. Otherwise, you're not even doing that. You're just running around like a headless chicken. You don't get time to sit there and look at him and say, "Oh, isn't he sweet?" and everything. I mean, you do your daily checks and everything to make sure he hasn't got any wounds and he's moving okay and all that sort of stuff. But it's, there's a lot to do. You're busy. Some days you are absolutely run off your feet, and a lot of it feels like it's just a checklist, but it's not. It's more than that. So obviously, you're checking on the conditions and all that for the animal. So it is different to what people expect. If you're passionate about this, remember that you are able to volunteer at zoos. And some zoos like us, if someone came to us and said, I'd better just preface this by saying at the moment we're kind of overrun with work experience and volunteers, but towards the end of the year we'll probably be looking at opening it up again. But if we get someone that says, I can come in the morning and do half a day, fine and dandy, because that first half of the day is where most of the stuff gets done anyway. So you can kind of get your fix by volunteering. And to be honest, for us, if someone we actually do have some people that have very, very high pressure jobs, that can be a little demoralizing. Some of them are police officers and things like that. So they see what scum people can be. So they just want to get away every now and then and work with animals. And if we've got the space, absolutely, yes, we completely understand. And they come and they help us. And one of them comes maybe once a month. Just as a break from the mental nightmare that she can have, part of her job. So, think about things like that where you can get your little fix for the reptiles, and you are actually helping out and you're doing your thing, but you're not stuck with the zookeeping wages and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
maybe that's an option. But there's also other, if you're good with a camera, you go around to zoos and start taking pictures and trying to sell them. There are ways. Just look what you've done. You've set up this ReptiChat thing.
It's going all right. It's going all right.
Yeah, well, geez, it's good. So there's things that you can do. You just
got to find that.
Sit down and write a list of all the things, all the possibilities. I know things can sound easier than they are and all that sort of stuff. And you probably put so much work and money into setting this up. It's not easy, certainly not for everyone. But try to write a list of all the things that you might be able to do. But maybe volunteering might be an easy starter for you. Maybe.
Yeah, it's like a foot in the door and nothing else, isn't that? It gives you an idea of the day-to-day as well. Paul also said,
and for some people it might be okay. You know what? I'm happy with this. It's all I want to do. I don't really want a job in there. And we get that as well. We get a few people that say, certainly with the conservation world, there's a lot of people that don't actually work with the animal, that they're like an expert within the conservation field. They might be a computer programmer. One guy I know that used to be an insurance broker. These guys were earning big dollars, and they use that money. They spend that money either on field trips, just going out to the field and getting involved with some of the conservation things. So, anyone there that's interested in crocodiles, Google Crocodile Specialist Group. It's part of the IUCN. There's more information on their website than you will ever be able to read on crocodiles, and it dates back to the 70s. So you can see the whole history if you've got, months and months and months of free time to read them all. And there's, monitor specialist groups, iguana specialist groups, boa and python specialist groups. There's loads of them within the IUCN. Just, if you can remember, IUCN Species Survival Commission specialist groups. If you Google that, you're gonna eventually find where they've listed all the specialist groups. And there's cat specialist group and shark specialist group and all that. You don't need to be a member of these groups because they're invite anyway. You can't just join, but you can still be involved. You can still be reading their newsletters and getting involved and keeping updated. And you can contact the people that write the articles, and that's a way that you can actually get in the door and get involved with the conservation of these animals. It's nothing to do with captive care or of them or anything. It's conservation. So that's actually a very, 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 very good foot in the door, that one.
Fantastic. Paul also mentioned there that in the UK at the moment, it's about 12 grand for a lace monitor. So 25 quid.
Break your heart, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Right, a couple more and then we will start to wrap up. So this one is from Ridley Reptiles. He says, what's your thoughts on your everyday person being able to get a license and keep crocodilians?
I really quite like the DWA licensing, because of what it means is if you want one of these animals, you can get one, but you do need to jump through a few hoops. Something like a crocodilian, you should have to jump through a few hoops.
Yeah.
So I'm not against it. We do see the sad results of a lot of them. So you do need to know what you're doing with these things. And over the years, I had to go. Where did I have to go? It was out Kent kind of way, in Kent somewhere. Someone had contacted London Zoo. They contacted me, and I went and picked up these two caimans because they were getting too big. They were like this big, and that's too big. Because even at that size, of course, they're going to bite. It's not going to send you to hospital. You won't be going to A&E. You'll just use a Band-Aid, but still, it does hurt. So that's too much for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that if you're doing your job properly, they're not going to be moving around a whole heap. So some people get these animals, they just sit under a hide, go out and bask, then back under their hide, come out when you're feeding them. If it's a young one, it's only going to be 2 or 3 times a week or whatever. And then as they get older, eventually it'll be once a week you're feeding them. So for some people, they're a lot more boring than they were expecting. And even the people that go, oh, I'll just get a little dwarf caiman because I won't need much space and they're only little. I know of at least one person that almost lost an arm. The caiman didn't rip it off, but it did such damage to someone's arm that the doctors almost had to remove it at the elbow. And that's a dwarf caiman. So these things are serious animals. I used to have a Paleosuchus page which had a lot of information about the dwarf and the smooth-fronted caiman. It unfortunately was hosted on another crocodilian site which has been removed. I won't go into any of those details. It wasn't my page, but I do have the text for it. I do need to update it. So I will keep promising to do that, to do it in the next 12 months. It's a rolling 12 months that never quite makes it. But that had a bit of captive care, a bit of, natural history and biology, all that sort of stuff. So I'll try and get that back up and running because the aim was, okay, this is what you're dealing with. This is where it's from. This is this sort of conditions it has in the wild. And then here's a few guidelines as to how you can replicate what it needs in your living room sort of thing. So getting back to the question, I have no problem in theory with people having it, but I do expect them to do their homework and to know what they're getting into, really. That animal is relying on you for everything. It's conditions. You've got to get the temperature right, the size right, the diet right. Diet has to be right because all those crocs you see at zoos with the teeth splayed out, they come in like that, drives us nuts. Crap diet. It's poor husbandry as the result, as the cause of that, and then we have to try and deal with that. Try and fix the teeth up, and you can get them fixed to a certain point, but they're never going to be on Alligator Monthly or anything like that.
Yeah, there's no crocodile dentist, really, is there?
Yeah. So you got to do your homework, and you got to treat it as a serious animal, and you are going to have it for the life of that animal. I know that can be a bit unrealistic. They live a bloody long time, but you should be aiming to have it for as long as you possibly can.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. Right, there's one more question. I think we've probably already answered it, but I will ask it anyway. So it's from Gary, and he says, what's the best piece of advice you can give to someone with a ton of know-how but no credentials to get their foot in the door of zoo animal keeping? I presume, again, volunteering?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Again, we do get this on a weekly basis. It's a very common question. We do sympathise. So, I don't know too many people in the zoo world that just roll their eyes and go, "Oh, another one of those." No, we treat each one of them with a bit of, okay, we've heard this one before, but we've been there ourselves. So there's a lot of avenues open to working with the animals. So volunteering is a good one because it is a foot in the door. Potentially, it's also a good way to know whether you think, you might volunteer at a zoo, see how it's run, and go, I think I'll stick to keeping animals in the shed. Because I can do it the way I want to do it. I don't need to jump through it. The zoo world itself is the standards are being revised by ARTSA is having an accreditation process. So we're having to jump through a lot of hoops at the moment, and that can get a bit wearying, to be honest.
Yeah. Right. And then the last comment I'm going to ring out today, and we will finish off with a couple more questions. This one isn't a question. It's more of a statement, and it is from Paul again. And he says, crocodiles are easy. They try to kill you and eat you. People are harder. They pretend to be your friends.
100%. Yep. You know where you stand with a croc.
Fantastic. Right. So I've got 2 more questions for you before we wrap up today. The first is the official final question of the podcast. and it is a double-barreled question. So the final official question of the podcast today: if time, money, space, and legality were no issue at all, which reptile would you like to keep, and also which animal that isn't a reptile would you like to keep?
I would probably still go for. I'd keep 2 species of crocs. I'd keep both the Paleosuchus species, so the dwarf caiman and the smooth-fronted caiman. Non-reptile. I'd stick with piranhas. I like piranhas.
Cool.
And I know this is how you guys can get me back, because in Australia I used to go to some of the fish shops and cloak and dagger, where I can get piranhas, and it was always try this place, try in the dark corner of their fish room and everything. They sometimes get them in, totally illegal in Australia. I did the same over here, and the guy just looked at me as I was an idiot, and he just pointed me. And there's a tank of them just there. They're 5 pounds each. Couldn't believe it. Happy as a pig in poop I was, as they say in the classics.
Definitely. And then the final question for today: what have you got going on, and where can people find you or Crocodiles of the World if they want to know some more?
Where can they go to? What?
Yeah, where can they find you or Crocodiles of the World themselves to get some more info on what we've been chatting about today?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if you send an email, if you want to contact me at Crocs of the World, education@crocodilesoftheworld.co.uk, send me an email. I do get a lot of requests for people wanting to get into the industry, so I'm happy to tailor it a bit if if you got certain circumstances or something. Always happy to help people. I wanted to get into the industry. I was stupid and bought a bloody zoo. Not everyone has to do that. Admittedly, I got in. Okay, it wasn't quite straightforward like that, but. Always happy to help people and encourage people. Crocs of the World is just outside of Oxford along the A40 towards Cheltenham. Come and visit us. I try very hard not to work on the weekends. So if you're visiting Monday to Friday, at the front desk, just ask if Colin is around. If I'm available, I'll come out and have a chat to you. Look, everyone in the zoo industry that I know is sympathetic to people wanting to get into the industry, and we all understand why. Where we can help, we will. Where we get frustrated is when we've given advice and we know people will go, yeah, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to volunteer, or I can't. We understand for some people it's not very easy. They can't drive or whatever, and there's no zoo within walking distance sort of thing. I understand it can be tricky, but when we are looking for people, for keeping jobs and everything, we are looking for the commitment as well. And we do have some people that have just hassled the hell out of their parents or friends, and they drive them and drop them at the zoo when they want to volunteer. Yeah. So it is, we know it is possible, but we also are sympathetic to people who have, difficult circumstances, which we do understand, in which case we do try to give them sort of different advice. I do have a little bit of a PDF that has, it's a couple of pages just with some ideas people can have for working with animals. So yeah, email me education@crocodilesoftheworld.co.uk, or ask for me if you come to visit, and if I can help, I will help.
Fantastic. So there we have it. Colin, thank you very, very much for coming on today.
No worries.
I really enjoyed this, and the chat I think have as well. I am going to say goodbye to you now, but please don't go anywhere. You'll be in the green room, and we'll have like a little debrief once I've just finished off the last little bit of the
no worries.
Thank you very much, and hopefully I'll see you at Crocodiles of the World soon.
No worries. Great. Thank you.
Nice one. Thank you very much. Cool. Well, that is a wrap. Hopefully you guys found that as interesting as I did. And if you haven't been already, I highly recommend making the trip over to Crocodiles of the World. It is fantastic. And it's also, I think it's under 20 quid for an adult ticket as well. So it is easily affordable too. Last but not least, if you want to keep up with me and the podcast, head over to your favorite social media, except for Threads. Actually, I am on Threads. I'm not on Twitter, but I have a Threads account. I don't use it. Anyway, search ReptiChat, and I'm sure I will pop up on there. Don't forget, there's also a link in the show notes below to Patreon, and I will try and update the show notes with links to Crocodiles of the World stuff as well. So that is all from me today. Thanks again for all your fantastic comments as well. I've been Ben McIntyre. This has been episode 49 of the ReptiChat podcast, and I will see you in a week. Until then, it is goodbye.